should be a monument of identical size to the Union.
Sure. Okay, I understand. Sure.
Yeah, we are now, again, a united nation, and this was a war of brother against brother, and a memorial to one brother that silently eclipses the other is not wisdom. That means we need to go to Stone Mountain, Georgia, with the big base relief profiles of the four Confederate generals, and across the street make a man-made mountain with four base relief profiles of Union generals. Or perhaps the bust of Martin Luther King and various other giants in the civil rights movement, including.
But one of the things I talked about in that piece that we just did is that there's this rhetoric. There's this march to destroy and erase. We've seen the destruction of Robert E. Lee's grave. We've seen the tipping over of Confederate graves in various cemeteries. You know, if somebody went in and just tipped over graves, that's a crime, and those people are sought down and arrested. But somehow, because it's the Confederates, it's like, oh, this now becomes a political issue. And, well, yes, we'll arrest them, but they'll, it's, everything somehow changes. But, sir, what I'm trying to say in the piece that I just read there is that we're slowly moving to that Taliban where they destroy the things and that great, huge sculpture in the mountain in Afghanistan. They destroyed the city of Nineveh. These are ancient artifacts. These are things that once were, whether you want to argue about, okay, they had slaves or what, that's not the point. The point is these are icons of the past, and we must never, ever forget our past. Judge, you will agree with me on that.
Treasures.
They're historical treasures.
Like, was it in Iraq or Afghanistan that had a 8,000-year-old statue of Buddha that was dynamited by the Taliban?
Exactly.
I guess it was Afghanistan because the Taliban did it. So, these are treasures that, with respect to Iraq, the looting of antiquities is one of the major methods of financing ISIS.
Yes.
The very first thing that a competent commander-in-chief would do is sit down with a map of Iraq and ascertain all the sites where the valuable antiquities are and create sanctuary zones, armed occupation sanctuary zones for the protection of those antiquities. And I'd also do the exact same thing for the lifeblood of the revenue, the oil fields. If you want to pacify Iraq, the very first thing you do is you occupy the oil fields.
Sure.
So then you make a list of all the ethnicities there are in Iraq. There's the Sunnis, there's
Shia and Shiites, right?
The Jews, there's a Jewish minority, there's a Christian minority, and you partition the nation so that there are homelands for all the ethnicities that are autonomous, separated by a 25-kilometer wide buffer zone so they don't even have a common border with each other because if left to their own devices, they will slit each other's throats.
Of course they were. Right. Yeah, right.
Multi-century war. So you have to separate these warring people one from another, and you have a foreign nation military police patrol the DMZ 25-kilometer zones between the autonomous areas, and this is thou shalt not set foot here zones. Patrol with drones. Patrol with demilitarized zone provost marshal military police, and put together a consortium that includes Japanese and etc. And you keep these warring factions from slitting each other's throats.
Well, here's the thing, sir. Now, I'm going to play devil's advocate here for a second.
Sure.
Now we become a police action. And I completely agree with you. seems to be the only way to do that. However, now we become a police action where we're policing these states. Sir, isn't this another example of how the rest of the world, and I'm talking about these despot nations, these backwater despot nations.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about Europe. I'm not talking about Australia. I'm not even talking about some of the Southeast Asian countries, even Vietnam, who's really trying really hard to come into the common market. Kudos to them. They're doing a great job. But I'm talking these backwater nations that, you know what, it's like we're always going to have to deal with. It's like the spoiled child or the third child in the family. It's like, you know, what did we do wrong? That daughter went to school. This guy became a business person. That guy got married and had 3 kids. But then there's the other child over here. And it's like, oh, crap. Is that what these countries are? That's that other child?
Well, the reality is there's very bad people in this world. And we have learned time and time again that forbearance and refusing to act responsibility allows personalities like Hitler to come to power and to arm themselves and then to cause trouble in the neighborhood, enter into genocide and death camps, and offensive warfare was deemed to be a crime against humanity, and we hanged the leading Nazis at Nuremberg for that.
Right.
So, while it's true that the United States of America should not bear the brunt of this international global policing effort, we still have a land that's choice above all other lands with people willing to do anything to get here. So, my recommendation is instead of the U.S. Being the world power that polices these brush fire places, that we create an international organization. I do not mean the UN. They are corrupt.
Yeah, right.
And this new international organization has created, let's say instead of a Security Council of the UN, it has a Crisis Council. And the Crisis Council then appoints a neutral general to be the DMZ Provost Marshal for a particular brush fire location. Now, do you recall the machete murders out of Rwanda where the Hutus...
Right, exactly.
So, what happened? The refugee camps were created, and then for a couple years, we provided first aid and soup kitchen and whatever it took to keep these refugees alive, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, how about the Hale and Hardy of militia age of these refugees that we're going to feed anyway? Be offered an opportunity to enlist in the DMZ Provost Marshal Corps. And we have 100,000 Rwandan volunteers. And at the end of 10 years of active duty with a honorable discharge from the Provost Marshals, they get a green card from any nation that participates in this new international organization. Most of them in the United States.
Interesting.
But I would love to have 100,000 Rwandans coming to the United States after serving for 10 years as a DMZ Provost Marshal peacekeeper who's earned that green card. We got upwards 20 to 30 million illegal aliens.
Right.
Remember, I cited that the governor's commander-in-chief of the state militia?
Right.
The Missouri Reserve Military Force, under Chapter 41 of our state law, authorizes the governor's commander-in-chief to utilize these Reserve Military Force state militia either in the state of Missouri or beyond the borders of Missouri. So there's nothing to prevent a state governor from ordering all the illegal aliens to muster into the state militia. And they can then be dedicated as provost marshal peacekeepers in brush fire wars abroad.
That would de facto become a pathway to citizenship, wouldn't it, sir?
Yeah, and they earned it.
Right.
They didn't just arrive and say, I want everything you got, and yes, I do need your guts.
Oh, man. Now you just spelled it out. You just spelled out the law. You just spelled out the Constitution. You just spelled out what is actually written down, the actual minutia of how to solve this problem. These other idiots who are on the stage tonight, not one of them has any freaking clue about that, do they?
Well, that's why you got me. In all sincerity, I'm in my early 60s. I've been elected and appointed to all three branches of state or local government. My degree is political science, University of State of New York. And I'm a U.S. Navy veteran. Right out of high school, when I was 19 years old, I enlisted in Uncle Sam's Navy because we were having then the Rushmore Wars in Vietnam.
Right.
And we had 300 body bags a week coming home from Vietnam. And I didn't wait to be drafted. I went down to the U.S. Navy recruiter.
You signed right up.
I instantly joined the Naval Reserve.
God bless you, sir.
And then, while I was waiting to finalize my affairs to go back to duty Navy, I was in the reserve, meaning they had me. And then the day I went active duty, I was transferred to the regular U.S. Navy and promoted 2 pay grades. So I was 3 steps ahead of everyone else that went active duty the same day. And then I was honorably discharged. In fact, I'm a service-connected disability veteran.
So,
left, part of my hale and hearty body behind me in the U.S. Navy. So I think that what we need is to focus on reality. It was Clinton who gave Red China most favored nation.
they are right. Jesus.
And of course, they are doing currency manipulations and they're flooding the United States at subsidized prices, goods that undermine our manufacturing base. They are waging economic warfare against us. So this new international organization, and for the first time this phone call I'm going to go today, the League of Free World Nations. And if you're a despot nation and a dictatorship, you're not invited in. And if you're not a part of the League of Free World Nations, you're not our trading partner. We embargo you.
The other thing I want to
build you up economically,
well,
knowing that your nation enslaves your people, has secret police, arbitrary arrests and imprisonments, which quite frankly is not happening in the United States of America. God forbid they should start filling the FEMA prison camps with American citizens who are simply dissidents against the ongoing criminal enterprise cartel now occupying the White House.
Judge, did we do ourselves a disservice by getting rid of some of the despots in the Middle East who, as evil as they may have been,
yes,
who in and of themselves were, I should say, at least they kept the boot on the necks of these radicals, whereas now these despots, these dictators, Mubarak, Gaddafi, even Saddam Hussein, they're gone. But think about it, folks. Think about it, and Judge will agree with me here, but think about it, folks. Think about it, folks. Back in the 90s, the 80s, the 70s, did you hear about this stuff? No, you didn't. Why did you not hear about this stuff? Because Saddam Hussein put the jackboot on these people. Why did you not hear about this in Libya? Because Gaddafi put the jackboot on the necks of these people. Why did you not hear about this in Tunisia, Morocco, Saudi Arabia, all these other countries? Because they put the jackboot on these people's necks. Now, what have we done? We've gotten rid of these people because it's all about democracy and the Arab Spring, and we've got to usher. Judge, hang on. Judge, hang on. We've got to usher in this new era of freedom and democracy. Well, guess what, folks? Now you got it. Judge, take it from here.
Yes, our most reliable allies in the war against Saddam Hussein and the current war against ISIS is also the very people we refuse to recognize as having their own nation, and that's the Kurds. The Kurds want to have their homeland of Kurdistan recognized as a free and independent nation. And these same people are hated by the Empire. We created the modern-day state of Turkey and Lebanon, Iraq, Iran, all of North Africa, Egypt, etc. The Egyptians were ruled by the British, as was the French got Morocco and Lebanon. I think the British got Iraq.
Right.
Okay? So, we need to do the same thing to Iran today. We need to partition the territory of Iran when we do use military option to get them out of the nuclear weapons business. And Kurdistan includes territory of what is today Iran, Iraq, and Turkey. So when we partition Iran, the traditional homeland for the Kurds in northwest Iran should become Kurdistan. And there's mostly Shia. So there has to be a homeland that's autonomous for the Shia. There's a minority, Sunni minority. There are the oppressed Iranian Jews and Christians. And all of these ethnicities need to have their own city-states and autonomous sovereignty.
Sure.
And a proper DMZ of 25 kilometers between them and their neighbors.
In fact, here, you just make a great point there, because I was just thinking about what you just said, and we almost have to talk about history coming full circle here, folks. We might actually have to return back to pre-World War I borders. Because if you think about it, after World War I, we rearranged the border. After World War II, we rearranged the borders, not taking into account any of the ethnicities and different things that were going on with these people. We are now dealing with that today. Judge Chambers just made a great, excellent point. We might actually have to return back to the pre-World War I borders. Give these people their separate little enclaves. Let them fight it out amongst themselves. Let them have their little tribal warfares. Just as long as it doesn't interfere.
Churchill was drawing the borders of what is now modern-day Iraq, and there's a jiggle in the border which is called Churchill's Hiccup.
Oh, really? Go ahead, sir.
Hiccup, it was drawing the map line. And the lines totally ignored the ancient homelands of tribes. So in this manner, modern-day Turkey sliced off and assimilated part of Kurdistan. Part of Kurdistan went to the modern state of Iraq.
Right.
And some is still in Iran.
That's why you have Kurdish separatists in Turkey.
Exactly.
Right.
And there's not a nickel's worth of difference between Kurdish separatists and Basque separatists and any other people that long for political independence and are really our allies in the region. If we recognize Kurdistan as a free and independent republic, 5 minutes after they proclaimed their independence state, just like what happened in 1948 when Harry Truman recognized the new state of Israel,
Right.
literally 5 minutes after Ben Gurion on the radio proclaimed the existence of the state of Israel, I honestly believe within 24 hours, the free and independent nation of Kurdistan was signed agreements with the United States in granting us air bases and anything we want and need. But when we wanted to bomb Iraq, our NATO allies in Turkey refused the United States Air Force to overfly Turkish airspace.
That's right. That's absolutely right. But, and I'm going to buttress what Judge Chambers just said. However, in the Free State of Kurdistan in northern Iraq, they were more than welcome. Our special forces landed there. They were able to set up bases. They actually got intel from the Kurdistans in northern Iraq on, yeah, this is where the guys are. Go there. In fact, we'll even drive you there and help you fight these guys. Go ahead, sir.
Well, let's talk about Iraq for a moment. Wisdom says the first thing you do is deploy an expeditionary force to take possession of the oil fields and build a wall of China around it. And no matter what happens to the rest of the country, that now denies them the oil revenues to continue their wars among themselves. mile buffer around
Right,
its entirety,
right,
and
right.
also separated the autonomous zones and the oil fields. And each autonomous city-state region, right off the top, could get its share of the revenues. And I guess right off the top, before we do that, we have to pay the peacekeepers that control the 25-mile buffer zones and our borders. And we do these with more troops who are contingents of the League of Free World Nations.
Well, now, sir, now you've entered, and I have to play devil's advocate. Now it does become a war about oil. It's all about the oil. You just want to drive your big SUVs.
Now, this is what the liberals say, and I'm going to say phooey. I'm going to remind them that I'm going to occupy the oil wells to deny ISIS the revenue.
Right. Well,
Okay,
here's my.
we also have to have a source of revenue to pay the provost marshal peacekeepers.
Well, here comes my second argument here. It's like, I understand that. Yeah, secure the oil fields. Here's my question. Okay, ISIS controls these fields. We know they're all despots. We know they're cutting people's heads off. I want to know, who the hell are these nations buying this oil from these people? It's like, hi, we're ISIS. We want to sell you oil. Okay, yeah, great. Yeah, keep cutting those heads off there, guys. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Park your tanker over here. We'll unload it tomorrow. It's like, who are these people doing this?
Well, probably our friends in Europe and China.
Because they don't care. Right, they don't care. Right.
Right. Which is why we need to economically arrange the League of Free World Nations. This is our trading partners. And if you are a totalitarian police state, you can't join the League of Free World Nations,
Right.
so there'll be no commerce. There'll be no cultural exchanges. There'll be no foreign exchange students.
Nothing, right.
We're going to starve you, not build you economically. In fact, we have a intelligence apparatus that when some guy stands up and starts screaming death to America, we have armies of Lee Harvey Oswalds embedded in this country to take care of the problem.
Now, Judge, you have more education than me, more experience than me, and to a certain extent, but not completely to all the extent, I do apologize for my streetwise rationale of the issue. What I just said a minute ago, it's like, who the hell's selling these? Who the hell's buying this oil? But sir, as a street guy myself, really, seriously, I mean, Americans are scratching their heads saying, what the hell's going on here? Who's doing this? It's like, why aren't we, what's going, there's a collective scratching of the head going on in America now. It's like, why aren't we killing these people? Why aren't we defeating them? We're looking at Islamic Sharia law growing here in America because it's supposed to be politically correct, and you've got to be tolerant. You got to be tolerant and understanding of other people's cultures. And meanwhile, we wake up next week and they're chopping people's heads off, and they're saying, no, you can't have this bakery, and no, you can't have that store because it's against our law. And the governors and the mayors of these cities are saying, oh, okay, all right, we want to be tolerant and understanding, so we're going to outlaw all this stuff. And all these other people are saying, wait a minute, I'm running a business here. What are you doing here? I'm sorry for my streetwise attitude here, but I think I represent a whole huge amount of America that they themselves, because America is basically built on our street sense, this is how we built our country, just by the brawn of our hands and, our own street sense. We're looking at it and we're saying, oh, dude, there's something going wrong here, man. This ain't supposed to be how it is. But yet we have these government officials, we have these international officials just dictating this stuff, and I'm sorry, sir, but they're shoving it down our friggin' throats here.
It's being accepted by complacent do-nothing Congress. Let's face it, we do have regimes abroad cutting people's heads off, but let's for at least one moment focus domestically on what's happened in the United States of America.
They're not doing
anything.
anything.
We need to make a fundamental decision. Do we want a federal Santa Claus want a screwed Yankee trader, Uncle Sam? Do we want to get ahead in this world and make deals that are beneficial to the United States, or do we want to bankrupt ourselves, give ourselves our wealth away, go into debt to do so, and then hasten the economic collapse of the United States?
Really, I say, well, actually, you gave me two options here. None of them actually really sound really good. I just want to get this country back on course and start getting back to the stuff that made us great and the stuff that we're supposed to represent. I mean, I'm sorry. Again, I apologize for my street sense here. I know I don't have the big education that a lot of my guests have, but one of the great things about doing this show and talking to people like you is that I can at least communicate, and I can tell you where I'm coming from and where I think a lot of American people are coming from, because after all, this country was built on the brawn and brains of people who I mean, many of them did not have great educations, many of them did not have great intellect, but they had a great idea, they had a sense of freedom and a sense of self and sovereignty, and these are the things that built this country. And now we're at a point in time today where we have to somehow apologize for that, and we have to acquiesce, and we have to somehow bow down and placate,
Sure.
and somehow, well, we have to accept them because it's supposed to be the tolerant thing to do, only to find out that the fox is running the hen house here, sir. Go ahead.
Well, we got a lot of problems. We need to start focusing and triaging these problems and solving the real important ones first, and then the ones that are third, fourth, and fifth, and 29th later.
Right. I like what you said. Triage. I like what you said. Triage the problems. Triage the
Between
problems.
European descent and also Native American. I am a Cherokee elder. So I say this because the liberals will say that I'm a racist, and I point out that with 30 million illegal aliens, one of the principal reasons to have no borders is to ensure that Caucasian Americans become a minority in their own country.
Right.
Okay? So if we're going to have border reform, immigration reform, the very first thing I would say is we need to freeze Hispanic immigration and immigrate two-thirds the amount of illegal aliens from Europe. We need some people that, like the Pilgrims came over to the United States from European stock, that built this nation. Otherwise, within 25 years, while the liberals say we cannot have English as the official language, I guarantee you that the illegal aliens, when they become voters, will, in time, state by state, demand that the state's official language become Spanish.
Right, exactly. And here's another thing that's going on, not only in the United States, but in the world itself, is that it's called a birth rate.
Yes.
It's a birth rate problem. Judge, see, you just said yes. You know what I'm talking about.
Yes,
but
the
Judge,
rate in order to maintain
right.
has to be 2.3,
Right.
and it's down 1.8 or 1.9 or
Right.
something like that, so we
Judge,
are on the path to
hang-
destruction.
Hang on, Judge. But Judge practically just said, "Hey, Judge, is this your show?" No, it's my show. Anyway, no, I'm just yanking your chain here, Judge. No, but Judge just said what I was going to say. We have a problem with birth rates, not only in Europe but here in the United States. And Judge just said it. Is that we're hovering around 1.3, 1.8 plus or minus, and I'm okay. It's my show. I'm going to say it about whites, and European and Caucasian people. You cannot sustain the population, and therefore, by not sustaining the population, you cannot sustain the very premises and the very precepts that built this country, and that knowledge that transcends from our history in the past into the future. However,
We
what is
can take a lesson from Dearborn, Michigan.
Right. He's right. Look at Dearborn. Right, Dearborn is there.
Where the police for Dearborn, Michigan will stand there and watch while Muslims attack Christians on the street and minister beatings.
And they don't do anything. And here's what I'm talking about. There's another video that's out on YouTube. It talks about the percentage. You know, when you're at 2% of Muslim population, okay, you know, they want to have their own places. That's fine. And then you get to 5%, it kind of grows. They want to get more into government. They want to get in more, you know. You get 10%, 15%. Now they start demanding. This is a fact. This is an actual fact that goes on. In fact, it's not only just Islam. In fact, it happens to be a paradigm of a lot of different cultures. Once you have many, well, okay, let's say, all right, I'm going to pick on Islam. Let's pick on Islam. They come into the country, they get that 10%, that 15%, that 20%. Now they're at a point in time where they start demanding that rules be changed, laws be changed. You start accepting their type of religion.
They do not join the melting pot.
They don't, right,
exactly.
And while at the meantime, we have this 1.3, 1.8, 1.5 rebirthing that's going on here in America, whereas these people are having 8, 9, 10, 12 kids, they're having 3, 4, 5 wives, 8, 9, 10 kids, and they're all being taught Sharia law, they're all being taught Islam, they're all being taught this, and then they say, yes, you are America and you have a country, you have to bring my children to school, and because we are 25% of the population, you now have to have Sharia in your school. And or we will not pay you that. I mean, they start demanding. And then instead of the school saying, hey, go fuck yourselves, excuse me, Judge, it is my show, go screw yourselves, you're in the United States of America, this is our law. No, you have to be, because we are 25% of the population of this community. The town capitulates.
First,
go ahead,
Judge. We have to cut the cancer out that is growing in our own bones. So, for instance, the Islamo movement in the United States is, according to the presidential advisor in the White House that was born in Iran, they're using our freedom of religion against ourselves.
Right.
Okay. We need to, by law, declare that Islam is not a religion, which it is not.
No, it's a way of life. I saw that.
It's a theocratic state.
Right.
So it's an economic, military, religious conglomerate.
It is.
Since there is no separation of church and state in Islam, we should not classify Islam as a religion. It is a theocratic state, and that's unconstitutional. There is no separation between church and state. It should not be given the religious freedoms that it's using against themselves to take over.
Absolutely correct. And again, sir, I know I'm just talking in a circle here. Why the hell didn't any of the candidates talk about this tonight? What the hell, man? Seriously.
Well, smoke and mirrors. There are certain things they are allowed to talk about and certain things that they will be attacked if they mention. Personally, I do not care if I'm attacked. I'm used to it.
I don't care on my show either. I don't care. No.
Yeah.
No, and this is, and I got news for you, Judge. This is why my show has grown. Because I even say it, I didn't say it tonight in my opening monologue. I was a little late getting in here because I was watching the debates. I was really glued to that. So I got a little late onto the show. But I say often in my opening monologue, we are a no apologies network here at M&B Conservative Media Network. Because that's the other problem, is everyone's like, look at that guy O'Malley. What the hell? That guy O'Malley who was up there and he says, oh, well, not only Black Lives Matter, White Lives Matter, all lives matter. And personally, you, me, the guy next door, a fly on the wall, I thought that was a perfectly fine statement. It covered all the bases. Then he had to go back and apologize because he said White Lives Matter. This is what we do not do here on the Meat and Potato Show. You don't like what we say here? There's cookies and milk in the next room, and we have nummy nums and teddy bears that you can hold And you guys go over there. Meanwhile, we have a radio show to do, and we don't
Thank you
apologize
very
for
much.
that. And we don't apologize for that. Because
You
this
have
is this,
just spoken, without saying the words, political correctness is not alive and well here.
no, it's not.
Political correctness is a problem. It is a conspiracy to deprive American citizens of their civil rights under the First Amendment, freedom of speech.
Sure.
It is mind control. So, I'm going to remind everybody within the sound of my voice that the American axiom, instead of being politically correct, is that bad speech is remedied with more speech, not by censorship.
Right.
So, if someone says Hitler was a nice guy, you get up on the soapbox and say, no, he was a creep. So that's an example of how bad speech is corrected by more speech. And the true American axiom is, I may disagree with what you say, but I will defend to the death the right to say it.
Sure, exactly.
And that's what we need to get in the face of every political correct person while they're in the act of screaming that, oh, he had a Confederate flag, or he's a racist, or whatever. Because we're certainly not correcting these people when they make pronouncements of, death to America, God knows what else they're into.
That
We
person,
allow that speech to pass without challenge, but they challenge conservatives just for thinking it.
that person who waves the flag, even okay. Let's play devil's advocate. Let's say that person is a KKK card-carrying member. I will disagree. Judge will disagree. Many of my audience will disagree. But never, ever, ever would I ever denigrate that person's right. It is a right. And it's not just a right enshrined in the Constitution. It is given to that person by God to believe
That's what all our rights come from God.
and to do.
The government does not give us our rights.
That's right. It is the only. Listen, the rights.
The Ninth Amendment says so.
The rights enshrined in the Constitution are only written words that clarify those rights given to us by our Creator. That's the only reason why our founders put them on to put pen to paper to do that.
And the Ninth Amendment says that the enumeration of certain rights in this Constitution does not disparage others that are not in those rights.
That's right. In other words,
These are the rights given to us by God.
yeah, exactly. And the 10th Amendment, if I can paraphrase and sum it up quite simply, is basically whatever we didn't cover here in the Constitution, yeah, you're not allowed to do that either. It's basically what the 10th Amendment basically says as well. And so this person who waves the flag, who might be like I said, a KKK card-carrying member, he has every right. He does. In fact, there was a great Supreme Court case heard many years ago. In fact, a man was shot and paralyzed for his belief in this. Judge might disagree with me on the analogy I'm using here, but he might agree on why I'm using this analogy. Larry Flint from Hustler went to the Supreme Court and he argued this. As horrific as Hustler magazine might be, as horrified as you might be by the pictures, he even said, he even did that. He stood up for that because we must be that offended to constantly be reminded.
Protection of free speech is not to guarantee the accepted, but instead to protect the outrageous.
That's right. Now, here's where the line gets crossed today, and Judge, hear me out on this. And this, I'm not going to read it, but it's in my diatribe. It's something I'm going to read to the Tea Party in a couple of weeks, and I'm going to publish in my blog. I got to clean it up. However, Alvin Toffler, great science fiction author, great political author from the 60s and 70s, in his book Future Shock, wrote about these things called subgroups. Basically, these subgroups were what he paraphrased and what he prophesied back in the 60s and 70s, was that these groups would be clamoring for their rights. They would be sucking at the teat of the Constitution, claiming we have a right to do this and we have a right to do that. And technically, Alvin Toffler agreed. He said, yeah, you do have a right. Where he drew the line was when these groups become powerful and start changing the Constitution, changing the laws, and start pushing their agenda into our society. Folks, that is where we are today. All these groups, fine. Hey, listen, if you want to set up an Islamic state or whatever in your community, fine. You stay over there and you don't try to impose your laws. Fine. We'll accept you. That's fine. You want to get gay and get married? Fine. We'll give you all the rights. You're supposed to have those rights. Where you draw the line is when you start saying, well, now we have these rights. We want to push the agenda. We want to change the Constitution. We want to pass a law. We want to vote. Go ahead,
Judge.
Judge.
I have to inject that the state has no power to regulate or prohibit a religious ordinance. Marriage is only matrimony. The government, in my view, has crossed the unconstitutional line with respect to gay marriage because they are defining marriage, which is a religious right ordinance.
Certainly. Yes. Yes.
They have full power to enact civil union laws and allow notaries public to marry people or judges. But, for instance, the state of Nevada crosses the line by having an ordained minister of the gospel have a state license to marry people.
Right.
Can you imagine how outrageous it would be if the state of Wyoming decided if a priest was to baptize someone, they needed a state license to baptize?
Right, right. In fact, I think, Judge, if I remember correctly, when we had our first conversation, we did kind of cover this in that centuries ago, that marriage was a contract. It was a contract between families. And yes, it was sanctified, but it was sanctified between the families through their religious, whatever religion they were. They went to their priest, they went to their, I don't know, shaman, or whatever tribe, whatever nation, whatever society it was. It was a contract between families. Yes, people did fall in love, and the families were like, well, they're in love, let's get them married. But it was still a contract. It was a written contract. It was put down between the private parties. And it was only sanctified by whatever those families, whatever their cleric or whatever it was.
This came about due to Jim Crow.
Go ahead, sir.
I think that the racist states under Jim Crow wanted to create a state intervention that you had to have a marriage license to get married, so that that would keep the separation of the races back in the Plessy versus Ferguson years.
Sure, right. No, I've heard. I've read some elements of that, and yeah, there is some meat to that. Part of Jim Crow, part of that. Yeah, it was to keep the various races separate. This is one of the reasons why government got involved. And of course, now here we are. Let's fast forward to 2015. Now it's like, oh, I gotta go get a marriage license, and it's like, oh, I gotta go get a priest. Oh, I gotta go to the court. I gotta go do all this legal stuff.
With the influx of polygamous Muslims, and you know they got 3-4 wives.
Sure.
Okay. Do you think the United States has the courage to enforce its polygamy felony crime?
No.
Are we only willing to imprison Mormons?
No.
Not Muslims.
No. Right, exactly. You just, thank you, sir, for saying that. Yeah, no. We won't go after the Muslims who have 3 or 4 wives, because that would be politically incorrect and that would be intolerant to their, but we'll go after those heathen Mormons, those polygamists. We have to destroy that. It is a pariah against our society. Jesus Christ.
We have polygamy felony statutes or sometimes misdemeanor statutes. And quite frankly, if we're going to defend neighborhoods against jihad, that means we're going to have to utilize the anti-polygamy laws at the state level to make these people felons and get it deported.
Sure, right. And of course, if you're Christian and you don't want to bake a gay wedding cake. You'll be sued. You'll be fined. You'll be sent to a re-education camp. But if you go to, but if you go, hang on, Judge. If you
officiate at Muslim weddings. Oh yes, let's do that.
Yeah, but if you go to a Muslim,
bakers to make cakes for KKK events. Oh yes.
Yeah. But if you go to a Muslim bakery and say that, in fact, again, there's a YouTube video out there. Somebody actually went and did that, and they were like, oh no, we don't, no. Hello, where's the Supreme Court on that? Where's the LGBTIUPCUA group? Where are they?
There's a man in California, John Dumais Jr., candidate for President of the United States in 1908.
Who's that guy?
Who brought the original lawsuit against Obama for not being an American citizen. Case was dismissed at the trial court level, appealed to the Court of Appeals, got dismissed by the Court of Appeals, was appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court just this last March, was dismissed without comment.
Yep.
Okay?
Cody Robert Judy is doing the same thing, right?
With cowards that no one's willing to confront Obama and tell him flat out, we don't believe that you meet the qualifications to be president.
And here's the other thing. Again, sir. Again, Judge. It's like no one's pointing this out. You can decry all you want about the internet and YouTube and the stuff that's out there. Sure, a lot of it is circumspect, a lot of it is suspect. I understand that. But when I watch these speeches from Obama from 2008, actually in town meetings, and I'm running for president, and yes, I was born in Kenya, he comes out and friggin' says it. He says it. He says it, and nobody does anything about it. And nobody does anything about it.
Let's be honest with each other. Obama is a pathological liar, and Dr. Ben Carson said that he's also a psychopath, and he's a medical doctor.
He's a neurosurgeon. So if there's somebody who knows something about the brain and the psychology of the brain, because I'm sorry, if you're going to operate on the brain, I'm sure Dr. Ben Carson has some knowledge of psychology and psychiatry and, certain mental disorders.
Diagnosis that Barack Obama is a psychopath.
He's got narcissistic. Yeah, I've read some things. He's got that narcissistic disorder. He does. He's got the narcissistic disorder.
So, if I was going to ask a question in a presidential debate of Dr. Ben Carson, I'd challenge him with his superior knowledge of medicine. Why doesn't he go to Washington, D.C., walk into a Washington, D.C. courthouse and file the forms naming Barry Soetoro, also known as Barack Obama, to have him arrested and detained for 72 hours and psychiatrically examined? And the suggestions in support of that mental illness detention would be his medical opinion.
Right.
About the pathology that has led him to publicly state that Barack Obama is a psychopath. We are a nation of laws, not a man. Barack Obama is just another American citizen. He can be detained and examined by shrinks. What if they rule that he is a madman?
Yeah, really. Exactly.
Yeah. Not only that, notice I said Barry Soetoro, also known as Barack Obama. He was legally adopted in Indonesia by Mr. Soetoro. I have never seen any document changing legally his name back to Obama.
Right.
I have seen a school record saying that he's a Muslim. I have never seen a baptismal certificate that he's a Christian.
Right. There you go. Right. Again, nobody's talking about this. Nobody's talking about this.
Chambers says, but then again, I'm a draw whenever you're ready partner kind of guy. I'm very politically incorrect, and I'm proud of it.
Well, you're in good company. Judge Chambers, I got to get to the rest of the show. What a great conversation. Absolutely. And
we always have a great conversation.
Yes, absolutely. And I filmed it, so that portion's going to go out on YouTube. Of course, it went out live tonight to WNLM Radio, Northern Lights Radio. Oh, Judge, absolutely fantastic.
Well, I would like to say before closing that one of the reasons I want to talk to you today was the Iran nuke deal. In my narrow-minded
Go ahead, sir.
opinion,
I was going to ask you.
violation of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty.
Hang on a second. I was going to ask you. Do you got a few more minutes? I mean, first of all, I want to thank Judge Chambers for coming on the Meat and Potato Show, WNLM Radio, Northern Lights Radio, and so yeah, if you got a couple more minutes, let's wrap this up. Let's take it to the top of the hour. It's 1:43 here on the eastern seaboard here. Let's take it up to the top of the hour. Go ahead, Judge.
Very good. Yes, the United States Senate ratified the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. The United States Constitution, which I'm fond of quoting, says that this Constitution, the laws enacted by the Congress, and the treaties entered into by the United States are the supreme laws of the land.
Right.
Now, we do not have a treaty with Iran. We have a private executive agreement,
Right.
an arrangement
Right.
that does not rise to treaty proportions.
Right.
How can an arrangement contravene the supreme law of the land in the form of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty and give the green light for Iran to go nuke?
Yeah, we're in that loosey-goosey thing now, and this I had a conversation with not only Mark Shaw, but also with Patrick Wood, author of the book Technocracy Rising, and I mentioned that we mentioned the Iran deal, we mentioned this going to the UN, and both Mark Shaw and Patrick Wood concurred with me in saying that yeah we've entered this loosey-goosey interpretation of the law, and both of them agreed, and I'm sure you would agree, that, well, since we elected Barack Obama, who's not a U.S.-born citizen, into the presidency, everything's kind of up in the air. It's kind of like toss the dice up into the sky and, let the chips fall where they may. This is where we're at right now. Go ahead, sir.
The U.S. Congress passed an ordinary law authorizing this loosey-goosey, non-treaty arrangement.
Right.
What happens when an ordinary statute contravenes the Constitution? Does it have any power?
No, it doesn't.
All right. So is the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty the supreme law of the land? Yes or no?
Yeah, that's a treaty, right?
Yes. So what happens when the statute contravenes the treaty?
It's
the
null
treaty is superior to the statute in this regard, in my humble view.
Well, the agreement that we have with Iran is technically null and void. It doesn't fall under those parameters.
And it could be just arbitrarily disavowed by the next president.
Sure.
Which I would do in my
Hopefully.
inaugurational speech if I was the next president.
Sure, right. Hopefully that will happen. Ted Cruz.
Since Barack Obama lacks U.S. citizenship status, it seems to me as though, having been elected twice, that for the duration, from January 20th at noon 2009 to the present day, the real president of the United States has been the Vice President Joe Biden.
Right.
Because the U.S. Constitution says that the president-elect shall not qualify, then the vice president-elect shall take his term.
Right, exactly. Right.
Therefore, I hold that Joe Biden's constitutionally barred from being elected to a third term.
And there you go. That's right. And so, Judge, he just enters a whole other chapter here. Now Joe Biden is thinking of throwing his hat into the ring. Here we go again, folks. We have an illegally elected president.
I'll just pick up the phone. I'll call John Dumais out in California.
Right.
He's called me repeatedly and asked me to consider being his running mate.
Sure.
He's running for president.
Sure.
And I'm going to ask John to file a suit against candidate Biden.
There you go.
Citing him as the de facto president of the United States. He's sure, rather, that Barack Obama does not qualify, and for the duration of his vice presidential term, he's actually been the real president.
And he can't run for a third term?
He has been a conspirator to put Obama in, and therefore is party to election fraud.
And here
Times 50 states.
okay, let me hang on there. Again, folks, as you all know, John Dumais has been on the Meat and Potato Show multiple times, and he'll be coming back on again multiple times again throughout the year. But Judge, let me hang on to you right there. Is that, again, let me go back to when I interviewed Patrick Wood, author of the book Technocracy. In the book Technocracy Rising, he mentioned something, and I did not know this. He mentioned, and Judge, you might know this because you're in law, it's called misprision. When you...
Misprision of felony. We have misprision of felony and misprision of misdemeanor, depending on the degree of...
Right. And so, he just mentioned about Joe Biden. Joe Biden abetted, aided, he knew himself that Barack Obama should not be president, that what he was doing was illegal, the usurpation of power, the disregard of the Constitution, and the oath that he took. And I served in the Coast Guard. Judge, you served in the military. You took oaths all the times that you served in office. You know how important that oath is. When a person knowingly witnesses another person disregarding their oath, breaking the law, and this pertains specifically to government. Not like if I see a crime or that's a whole separate law. But somebody in government who knows that somebody is breaking the law, they're disregarding their oath of the Constitution, and then that person willingly looks the other way and does not report it, that is called an act of misprision. That person is as equally subject to a crime as the person they're disregarding and not reporting. Judge, clarify on this, please.
Well, we have a conspiracy that is in fact an ongoing criminal enterprise, both domestically and abroad. This ongoing criminal enterprise commits both state and federal criminal acts and also crimes against humanity. Both Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama have been named by the Egyptian complaint before the World Court at The Hague as being principal defendants in allegations that they committed crimes against humanity, terrorism, and murder.
Right.
By funding the Muslim Brotherhood uprising that killed all the Coptic Christians, raped all those Coptic Christian women and teens, burned over 1,000 Coptic Christian churches. And during this period of time and the lead up to this period of time, the facts show that the U.S. Department of State under Hillary was funding the Muslim Brotherhood and dispersing hundreds of millions of dollars directly to the Muslim Brotherhood. The attack on Benghazi was filmed on cell phones, and we have that on YouTube. And you hear the terrorists shouting to the Libyan guards, "Don't shoot us, Dr. Morsi has sent us." Dr. Morsi was the Mohammed Morsi, Muslim Brotherhood president of Egypt.
Right.
So here we have their own admission that they were sent by the Muslim Brotherhood president of Egypt to attack the American CIA weapons post in Benghazi, resulting in the death of the U.S. ambassador.
Wow. Yeah, that's right.
Now, these conspiracies happened down in Rocky Bottom at the State Department headquarters and also in the White House Situation Room, and are actionable in American courts.
Again, sir.
The people in the USA that orchestrated the Muslim Brotherhood uprising in Egypt are culpable for the murders, the arsons, the rapes, and the crimes against humanity. Thousands of counts. And that's just the international part of it. Obama made war on Libya and attacked U.S. naval warship missiles without the authorization of Congress to employ force.
That's true. That's true.
He announced war in Lebanon. No, excuse me, Syria. And then backed down when Putin said that they would put the weapons stockpile of sarin gas under international control. And to
Sure.
This happened in our lifetime when Barack Obama announced war in Syria and no one came.
Yeah, right. Exactly, right. Same thing in Libya. Yeah, we had the bombing campaign, but no one came.
So he has made the presidency and the United States by association a laughingstock.
And here's the sad thing too. Okay, I'm no big fan of Muammar Gaddafi. But from
By the
doing
way, the 25th Amendment, going back to Biden a minute, the 25th Amendment was enacted and adopted after the Kennedy assassination and provides that the president can appoint a new vice president when the vice president becomes president, the vice president becomes vacant. And this is what happened. In fact, President Ford then appointed Governor Rockefeller as a new vice president
Right.
to fill his post as vice president when he acceded to the presidency after Nixon resigned. But there's another part of the 25th Amendment that's never been used. And that says whenever the vice president and the majority of the cabinet shall write a letter to the Speaker of the House and the President pro tem of the Senate asserting that the president is under disability and cannot exercise the powers and duties of his office, then the powers of the presidency are transferred immediately to the vice president as acting president.
Right.
If the president feels he's not disabled, within 3 days he shall write a letter to the Speaker of the House and the President pro tem of the Senate contesting the assertion that he's unable to discharge the powers and duties of the office, and the Congress shall assemble within a mere matter of days and by vote decide the issue whether or not the president is disabled.
Right. Exactly. Right.
Now, when they wrote the 25th Amendment, they were probably thinking of physical and mental disability. But here we got Barack Obama, who I assert is acting under legal disability because he fails to qualify.
That's true. That's true. And also I would buttress that and add to it, yeah, his narcissistic personality. I mean, this guy, you're right. You said it earlier in the interview. The guy's a psychopath. There's something wrong here.
Well, as the White House murmured that to govern against the president is treason,
Uh-oh. Did we lose you?
that was in the name of humanities, not merely criticizing the president. The president who's not the president is an imposter
Yeah.
and is the kingpin of an ongoing criminal enterprise being operated out of our Oval Office.
Sure. Right. Exactly. That's exactly what's happening. And here we are. Here we are. I mean, we are... You know, Jefferson said this I was reading Jefferson's biography late last year, and one of the things he said, and it pertains to the creation of the central bank, but his words are prophetic, and one of the great things I love about our founding fathers is even though they might have been talking about a specific issue going on at the time, the way they worded these things, it's food for thought for other facets that we enter into. And one of the things Jefferson talked about with the central bank is because it's outside the purview of the Constitution, and it's got nothing to do with the United States government, and the Constitution clearly states that, yeah, only the Congress can mint coins, and, you know, that it's the role of the government. Why do we need a central bank? Jefferson said, we are entering a foggy field that is outside the purview of the Constitution. And once we enter that, once we get into that, we become directionless, and then it does. I know I'm paraphrasing here because I don't have the book in front of me. It's earmarked and it's over in my bookcase over there. But what he's basically saying is, once we enter that field, I mean, then it's anything goes at this point in time. And once we're in that foggy field, then other groups, bringing me back to what I said about Alvin Toffler and these subgroups, now these other groups come in and they say, well, we want our rights, and then we have to say, oh, okay, and we start, and then we elect a president who's not necessarily really born in the United States, but we're gonna put him in there anyway. And then we start going down this road, and then it just becomes, and Judge said it earlier, it's like even Biden, I mentioned that thing about misprision. It's like these people know this is going on. We're in that foggy field now. And not only are we in that foggy field, we're lost in that foggy field. We don't even know Look back, turn around, look at that. Where did we come from? I don't know. It's all covered in fog. Look ahead. Where are we going? I don't know. It's all covered in fog. Look to the left. Look to the right. I don't know. It's all covered in fog. We're in that foggy field now. And even though we know, Judge just said, we have these laws, we have these statutes, the Constitution is clear on this stuff, it doesn't matter now in this foggy field that we're in today, as Jefferson warned us about a long time ago, 1789, I think it was, because he was in France at the time. But whatever. That's another topic for another day. Judge Chambers, sir, thank you, sir. Always great having you on the show. Absolutely fantastic. We're coming up to the top of the hour. I gotta get to some other stuff going on here, sir. Absolutely fantastic. This is going out on YouTube later on. And of course, it was live here tonight on Northern Lights Radio. Judge Chambers, Tea Party Patriots, what's in store for you guys? Talk to us about that real quickly, sir. Oh, I think we lost him. Did we lose him? How did we lose him? Wow, that's weird, huh? Oh. Let's see if we can get him back. Well, whatever. If he wants to call back in, he can call back in. We lost him. Oh, my phone's charged. Because I had to plug it in. So it's at least charging. So anyway, that's where we are. We're at that now. The Meat and Potato Show, conservative talk, awesome rock, broadcasting here on Northern Lights Radio. A little rough tonight. We're filming here right now. We're going to shut the camera off. We're going to post that up to YouTube tomorrow morning. And I want to thank Judge Chambers for coming on to the show. I'm sorry we lost you at the end. I have no idea why. Anyway, let's get to some other stuff here. Judge, thank you so much. We'll be talking to you again. We'll get him back onto the show. Meat and Potato Show, conservative talk, awesome rock.
Oh, it's the guy from Boston.